Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ibrahim Nwagui Co. And this is Corporate Dropout University, another installment of the check-in, where we check in with our favorite hustlers, entrepreneurs, and influencers. And of course, today, this evening, this afternoon is right in line with what we generally love to give. And we have a phenomenal interviewee here. And I would like for her to introduce herself and everything. You got so many hats, so in everything that you please.
Good evening, happy Friday, happy New Year. I'm excited to be here with you. I am the wearer of many hats, as Ibrahim just shared. My name is Dr. Courtney Davis, and I'm an educator and also a self-published author and newly minted podcaster. Initially, we met because I am, as I said, self-published author of 2 children's books. One is called A is for Anacostia, representing my current neighborhood in historic Anacostia in Washington, D.C. Shout out to Southeast.
Come on now.
And of course, also the author of a second children's book. It's called S is for South Side, the alphabet visits Chicago. And that's my hometown, the South Side of Chicago. And so I just really want to highlight the important places, historical figures that are in both communities, introducing them to folks who are not familiar with them, and then introducing them to come to our neighborhoods and visit and get a chance to know what's really going on and stop paying attention to what's in the news or other misrepresented images and messages that are shared about both communities. In addition to that, in the process of creating a podcast, and it's called The Way We Self-Publish. And so I'm really excited about that because it highlights self-published authors of children's books as well as young adult books. And so the trailer is up and ready to go. You can access that where you access your favorite podcast. We're also on Instagram at The Way We Self-Publish. So I can't wait to share some more details about that with you.
I am excited. So first and foremost, to let you know how real it is, here we go right here. We definitely, that was a must grab for me. You know, like my daughter, my kids, they grew up here in Houston. When I say grew up, they're only 4 and 2. But I said, no, we definitely got to have this book. And I'll say this too. This book, amongst other ones, but specifically this one, was a huge inspiration for my book because
thank you.
I'm telling you seriously, because when I saw my neighborhood in lights, I said, okay, like whatever I do, I want to make sure that I represent my neighborhood. And so this was the first book that I had seen with my neighborhood name in it. I was like, oh man, like we made it.
Yes. So, the best compliment is to hear folks, elders, particularly in the community, and say, oh, you grew up in the community, or you made our community, you made us look good. Yeah. You made us sound good, you made us look good. And then sometimes I'm mistaken for someone who's a native Washingtonian. And yes. I'm just tickled because I'm like, well, I'm kind of a chameleon here. I said, I did not grow up in Southeast or even in Washington, D.C., but I've been here now almost a solid maybe 18 years going on. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like I'm the adopted daughter. And
you've seen a lot. If you've been there for 18 years, you've seen a lot.
Right here, Yeah. And so when folks, they're just excited. They're excited. There's a positive message about our community. Active in the community, knowing neighbors and working with schools, working with teachers. I'm a teacher in the community. I have been a teacher in the community. And so it was just really important to me that I represent the residents, places, historical figures, not only in a positive way, but in an accurate way as well. And most of the times when I'm talking to people, it's different than the message that you hear on TV or the message that you hear from people who do not live in Anacostia or in Southeast or in Ward 8. So I'm most pleased about when people say you make us feel good about our community. I'm happiest when I hear those comments.
And you know that one thing about a person from Southeast is that our pride level in being from Southeast is like, sometimes I go places they don't even know, and and I can just tell they just like, who does this guy think he is? I'm like, oh, you didn't know? Oh, I'm from Southeast.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I'm honored to have you on. So I want to get right into it. So the first thing that I like to ask my guests is it's a very simple question. I always lead with that. It's a very simple question, but I think it's a underrated and kind of we don't we don't wait for the answer. We just kind of say, "Oh, how you doing?" I'd like to ask. I always like to ask, especially in these times.
Yes.
How are you doing?
You know what? It's been a rough week. Like, it's been a real rough week, but I'm so glad that this podcast is on a Friday
Yeah.
because it was, it's on the upswing. As much as I say, okay, I want to keep it positive, been very busy, working on other projects, but I'm glad those things are coming to an end, but it's an upswing and seeing you and talking to you. So it's been a good day for sure. I feel like I'm hanging in there most days. After all, we are in a pandemic. We have lots of social injustice going on that we have to
Yeah.
definitely stand up and fight against. And so that takes up so much of our energy, so much of our time. And just listening to social media, listening to the news, it can really become overbearing. And so I think at times I've hit that limit. And during this week, it's just been a reminder that you need to take a breath, get outside, move around, and then come back to yourself.
I think that, and I say this a lot. I think that when we look back on this time period, we will look back at this time period as more of a renaissance than like the chaos that was that was surrounding like everything that was going on. Just thinking about how many things have been uprooted, the things that we've seen not only just in the last not only in the last year, but in the last month, the things that we've seen, we've never seen it before.
Yes.
And every time I turn on the TV, there's something new that I haven't seen before. Like I know you've probably heard the stir with the stock market and all of that stuff.
Yes, the
Like,
GameStop. I,
yes,
I was trying to get a handle on what's going on with the stocks and things. I'm like, what? What's going on? Recently, I saw another article today about food that we think is edible food, and
mm,
Subway. And I'm thinking, what is this? We're not eating real food. I'm like,
yeah,
what's
yeah,
going on?
yeah. I think the biggest thing is you have to be nimble during these times
Mm,
because the things that we were set on as being like set in stone, everything is being uprooted. And if you're not able to accept that the only concept that we have going on right now is change, you are going
absolutely.
to you may not survive it. So I'm paying attention, and I strongly believe that it's a lot of chaos going on, but we're going to look
Yes.
back on this and be like, hey man, like that was when everything changed. you know
Yes.
I truly believe that.
Yes. I think another piece of that too, Ibrahim, is that we have to censor to what we're going to focus on. So, for
Okay.
example, in the mornings, I'm starting my day, I have some affirmations, I'm trying to get quieted to jump into, whatever's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit of like, okay, I'm gonna listen to the news, but I can't listen to that all day long.
Yeah.
And not at this point. I can only do so much of the news, so much of social media. And after that, I'm like, okay, I've had enough. I've had my dose for today. Now it's
Yeah.
time to read. Now it's time to listen to your podcast. Now it's time to listen to another story that's online or book on tape. I might be dating myself with that one. Book on tape. Well, now we
Mm.
have podcasts, now it's time to be creative and sit
Yeah.
down and write. So I think if anything during this time, I agree. We're going to see some innovations. We're going to see some creativity. We're going to hear some stories, some films, some books. And I think so often we've forgotten that artists are essential workers too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Amanda Gorman, she reminded people, our poet laureate, she
Yeah.
reminded people of how important, how critical arts are. I mean, after all, what are we are doing in our homes? If we're reading, we are
Yeah.
watching TV, We are playing games with our kids. We're creating things, we're imagining, and hopefully we are reimagining so that when we finally open up our doors after COVID-19 is open, is over, then we can open up our doors to different communities, to different relationships, even with
Yeah.
our family members, maybe with our neighbors. But we can take on a different kind of role than we had before. Some of us are going to be forced to take on a different
You're going to
role.
be forced. Yeah.
Hmm.
100%. And it's kind of, it's funny that you said it, because that's kind of like where I wanted to go. I want you to kind of visit that. Like, what does like how has this spawned innovation for you? Or before I even go there, more so like, if you could remember at this point, it seems so long ago, but like, how was things with your business, and and with the books and everything that you were doing, like, how were things before?
Hmm.
And then it happens, we get shut down. How did that make you pivot?
You know what? It feels kind of strange to see. Okay, it's BC before
Yeah, yeah,
COVID.
yeah,
Now
seriously,
everything's
yeah,
going to be like the world before COVID and then the world after COVID. So
yeah,
before COVID, as far as self-publishing is concerned, we pick up books, we put them in the trunk, and then we drive to the book festival. And when
yeah,
we drive there, we have a snack. We're there from probably about maybe 8:30 until about 5 or 6. We have a 6 foot long table, and we're planted there with the hopes of speaking to parents and teachers and seeing kids and doing read alouds and touching and hugging and taking selfies,
yeah,
being very engaged and very hands-on.
yeah,
That was before COVID. Now it's just completely, it doesn't exist. Book festivals do not exist in person like any other
yeah,
kind of interaction that's in person, right?
yeah,
Now we have book festivals that are online. And I was the founder for the East of the River Book Festival, and so we canceled. I made the final decision to cancel the book festival.
mm,
And it was solely because there's no way we could not replicate the interaction that we have with children, with families, with educators, with people who just want to come out and enjoy Black books. We
yeah,
couldn't replicate that experience onto a screen. There's just nothing like it. It's nothing like being in the presence of other writers, of other readers, and learning and finding out more resources and talking about who's your illustrator and where do you publish,
yeah,
and having little ones want to give you a hug and say, oh, I really like your character because, and they go on and they're just smiling because they see characters that represent them.
yeah,
And so rather than try and do something that's like trying to stick something together and put it on a screen, that just wasn't going to do. And I still think, even in the upcoming year in 2021, if we find out that we're still in this place where everything is still online, I mean, maybe something even more innovative will come up, rather than just having it on your Chromebook or your phone. But if it
yeah,
doesn't, we'll just hold out until we innovate something that's better than this, so that we can have that same kind of experience with our families and with students and readers and writers. That's really disappointing to me, that out of everything that's going on, it's so disappointing that we just can't be in each other's space.
Well, I'll say this, and then we kind of, I'll say this, and it may be controversial a little bit, right? But at one point, um, the argument was made that Amazon wouldn't survive
Mhm.
because people prefer in-person interaction.
Mhm.
Fast forward 20 years, richest man in the world, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so what I think is that you or I, right, like we came up in, before COVID, right? Like
Right.
we know what that feels like. The new
Mhm.
kids, their normal is, even
It's
before COVID, their
Yes.
normal is this.
It's
And
online. Yes.
so
Yes.
and I totally agree with you, because I'll say this is that I created an event called the Dropout, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it
Excellent.
was it was a showcase for entrepreneurs, but it was all virtual, right?
Mhm.
And I had a DJ and I had speakers. Now, the thing that I struggled with, and I think that I kind of figured out how to get over the interaction by having engaging
Mhm.
things for people to do. And that's what I'm looking for with
Mhm.
what, you know, like, so I had to read aloud at or, but
Mhm.
my wheels are still turning because I know where we're going. Regardless of how I feel about it, I know where we're going. So I'm looking at, okay, how can I make the laptop disappear in this person's hands? And
Mhm.
so I got a taste of it when I did the dropout. I probably, and the next one that I do, you know, I throw some more money at it to,
Mhm.
to help
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
realize, the vision a little bit better. But I think I did really kind of scratch the surface on how things, we will go back outside, but I think that we're not going to get rid of this.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. I totally agree. Like the
yeah,
screens are here to stay.
yeah, they
And
hear
I
you.
think they're going to be, I feel like I'm partly in a society where I feel like maybe my grandparents are like, they're like, that's for the young kids.
Yeah,
And at some point, I'm 49, about to turn 50, and I can still be a young kid to a great grandparent or a grandparent. They'll
yeah,
say, "Oh, you still young, part of that society." But on the flip side, I definitely feel like I'm now beginning to take on the role of a grandparent or great grandparent in that I'm looking at technology. I'm like, wow, I'm a part of that world, but actually, I am not a master of that technology
yeah,
like students are, like the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. And it's something to master. I mean, we just have to use it and be comfortable with it because, as you say, it's not going anywhere. So
mhm,
either it's going to become part of our world, or we will be limited. We're going to miss out
yeah,
because so much of it, I mean, how much of our world is on the screen now? I
yeah,
mean, you can order everything to be delivered to your home. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, we could order services to be delivered to our home and be done in our home. Like if you
yeah,
had a personal health workout person come to your house,
yeah,
personal trainer, masseuse, housekeeper, groceries delivered to your home, you can have all those services come to your home. So
yeah,
I agree with you in that the key is engagement,
yeah,
that engagement, because that isn't about just being on the screen,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that's about, okay, I may be in 3 states over and you are in Houston, and we're at the book festival, the check-in book festival. And so, but now someone's asking me questions and I have to tap, like, okay, because I'm engaged, just like if it was a
yeah.
video game with the person who's speaking to me. So I agree, we have to figure out ways, because you're right, this is not going away anytime soon.
You know what makes me the most excited about this and most hopeful about like this type of interaction
Uh-huh.
is that in my mind it shrinks our global community.
Mm.
That's the thing that makes me the most excited about it. So I give you an example. I give you two examples just from
Yeah.
this year alone. The things that I've taken part in. I've I've been a part of a virtual martial arts class that did not
Oh.
exist until the pandemic. I met two gentlemen who have a virtual um, it's like it's like a cooking experience cater. It's called Hospitality Bros, and basically what
Uh-huh.
they do is you book them.
Uh-huh.
You get the same ingredients. You guys agree on what ingredients. You guys agree on what you want to get, and they show you how to make it as you're watching them, and they're interacting with you, like, like, oh, I can see, okay, no, that's too much salt, blah blah blah. And then
Uh-huh.
at the end of it, like, you've made a gourmet meal, but from interacting with these brothers. Well, that business model may not have been in existence before this, and
Yes.
I probably would not even have known because they're in Detroit. But
Okay.
the way that I met them was through the dropout, and that's what I was like so excited about in
Okay.
terms of like being able to bring in more people so that we really don't have to go outside of our community, because
Mm-hmm.
there's somebody that does something in every state and every city here in the United
Yes.
States and abroad, but you don't know,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Unless we tap in this way. you know?
Yes.
So that's the thing that I'm most excited about when there's this real this like a live network that we begin to,
Mhm.
it's like Facebook, but then entertainment. Like that's the vision that I have in my head to where
Mhm.
somebody you might have had to go to 20 different book fairs
Mhm.
gain the following that you would have to get opposed to if you did one virtual book fair
Yes.
that was plugged into different states at one time.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And then now
Yes.
you just got all of
Yes.
that clientele from the. So that's what I think.
Yes.
That's what makes me excited about this thing
I'm on the
becoming
same page with
prevalent.
you about that. I'm definitely on the same page with you about that. Because then it's going to force us to one, communicate with people who they may be in our sin. Let's just say for self-publishing books again.
Yeah,
So now we're connected.
yeah,
So now you're in Houston and I'm in Washington. That's where we live. You live in Houston. I live in Washington, D.C.
yeah,
But if I know someone who's in Atlanta and you know someone who's in California, and then I know somebody else is in California, and we put all those people together so that we're connected, we're
yeah,
first connected, and then we're going to create our own network
yes,
once we do that. And I think that's been made easier. One, you have to have access to technology.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people do through their phones at the very least. Phones are just these magical tools that can do so much. But I'm still not sure if, and I'm speaking for myself because I know I don't know how to use all the features of the technology. So though I
yeah,
may have access to it and I have access to the internet, I don't always know, like, okay, what's the best way of doing this or getting this message out or
yeah.
connecting to this person or connecting to multiple social media platforms. I'm just getting the hang of like, ooh, I can put a message on my author IG page and go out on my personal IG page at the same time. I mean, so
Yeah.
it just takes some time to get that on. But ultimately, as an entrepreneur, how do we ensure that making those connections and then creating those networks are going to be monetized? And so that rather than me spend $110 to register to be in a book festival that may be maybe 45 minutes away, that we can create this network and maybe the book festival is free or maybe
Mhm.
a reduced amount of money. It may be 10 or $15,
Yeah.
but we have a wider network and way more readers and writers that access our materials. So
And
we're
see,
sending it all over the world. It's online. They want to reserve our time to come to other schools virtually to read aloud,
yeah,
be on panels. And so I don't know if we're seeing that now. We're beginning to see that now, but it'll be real interesting because I think that's going to. I've seen that with some conferences and summits. Some are
yeah,
just free, and some you have to pay a small fee, like $20 to be
yeah.
a part of it. And so I wonder, I'm like, what are we getting for that? What kind of bang are we getting for our buck now that is
Right.
during COVID?
And you know what? I mean, I'm partially in that lane because that's
Mhm.
what I'm attempting to create with Corporate Dropout University.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, with the dropout, I didn't charge anybody,
Okay.
right? But my intent was to get the people, the attendees, to
Mhm.
spend money with the vendors, the virtual vendors.
Yes.
You see what I'm
Yes.
saying? So it
Yes.
takes to me, it takes a certain type of vision to be able to make sure that the company that's organized and everything stays afloat, but
Yes.
then you're able to give people services that are within reason, that makes sense, right?
Right.
Because okay, you may not know about my business, right? So why would you even want to pay to come and sit on your laptop, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
If I bring somebody that you may have heard of, or it just looks interesting, then you want to tap in.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
so my challenge is, and I think it will probably be your challenge too, is these things cost money, right? So in my
Mhm.
mind, So I'll give you an example. In my mind, for the next one, I have my eye on this. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you looked at All Black Everything. They are so those ladies,
Yeah.
they do a pop-up shop every Friday.
Yep.
All of these vendors. I want to have them bring on their vendors and then let them keep their money. So whatever their fee is that they, charge their vendors, I want them to regulate that. I won't put my hand in that.
Okay.
Right. Then hospitality bros, the ones that I was talking about that do the, the food and all that stuff. I want to talk to them and I'll pay them to come on and be the headliner. Right.
Gotcha.
I'll pay the DJ.
Okay.
But in my mind, what I need is I have my eye on, I don't know, you probably haven't heard of it. It's called Boma Link. It's like the LinkedIn of Africa, basically. It's like the African version of LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking about an institution like that. Well, they may pay me to sponsor this event so that they can have access to all of the people that we're going to have on there. So it's like it's like being innovative in that way, where it's like, okay, well, it doesn't make sense for me to charge the vendors because they don't know. It doesn't make sense for me to charge hospitality bros because they're doing the service. What would they get back?
Right.
It doesn't make sense for me to charge the people because I want them to spend money when they get there.
Yes.
So I think that, but then when you tap into a bigger corporation that may your main appeal is your people, your data, the people that you bring.
The people, that's right.
Talk about getting it paid for. So it's just like kind of connecting the dots to make sure everybody gets something. And it probably won't be in the same structure that it was before.
No, I totally agree.
Just transactions,
I totally agree.
But the overhead is different, right?
Absolutely, because just think about when you've had events, I've had events where you typically pay the venue, unless it's gifted, but typically you're paying some money or reduced fee for a venue. You're paying, you may not be paying out of your own pocket, like for, air conditioning, heat, light. Do you have tents? Do you have to rent space, even if it may be outside? Now, again, because we're in COVID, that's totally out. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Everything is online. We have internet. And we pay the fee in our home, to access the internet. And then that's it. But then you think, I like your idea about, it's not just win-win. It's like win-win. Like everybody wins. Like, how do you create the business model so that everybody wins? And then you and I as organizers also win by identifying that sponsor who is also going to win because that organization is going to have access to more people that they would not typically have access to.
Exactly. And so that's our job, in this post-COVID, era, it's our job. And to speak to your point, and I'm glad that you kind of circle back around to it, to speak to your point about creatives being the most important entity in our society right now. And really, we've been that, and that's the goal. That's the goal of this, is to normalize entrepreneurship, because we're all working for an entrepreneur on some level. So I believe that entrepreneurship should be just as much of an option as going to college straight out of high school.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so, but it could be taboo sometimes, right? Like if a kid says they want to be an entrepreneur, then sometimes people will automatically sweep it under, oh, you just don't know what you want to do, or you don't want the rules, you don't want nobody telling you nothing, so you think you just gonna be, no, like there are some really sharp kids out here.
Oh, absolutely.
That know exactly what they want, and they get their dreams taken away because someone older may not understand, how to help them. So they help them in the way that they know how. And I did want to talk specifically about innovation. Like, it's kind of obvious, right? But I just want you to kind of lay it out in terms of like, how has this thing spawned innovation for you, like going forward? What do you see as like additives to your business model now?
So you know what? I see more collaborations. I was already similar to you, just saying, hey, I don't have to do this by myself. Matter of fact, I can't do this by myself. There's no way. I think any entrepreneur knows that, whether no matter what the field, what the theme, what the topic,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs know that we can run farther, faster if we do it together as a team.
Yeah.
Because we just one person doesn't harness all the skills that it takes to be successful with however success is defined. But the idea, I think we're going to see some more collaborations. At least I'm thinking of them. So when I think about self-published books,
Yeah.
and very often, and you'll definitely hear this on the podcast because I kind of push people to say, give me a range of how much this initiative cost.
Yeah.
Too many writers who are interested don't know their budgets because they don't realize that they're entrepreneurs. They don't think of themselves as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They think of themselves as writers.
Yeah.
And they think of themselves as creatives, which is fantastic. Not every writer is going to be what I would consider an authorpreneur.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But after you write your first book, you're like, if I can do the first one, surely I could do a second one. I could do a third one. I could do something in a different genre. But what I'd rather, have people to think about is one, collaborating with another writer. And then also knowing your numbers a lot more, not even a little bit more, but a lot more. And that's something that when I started, I did not do. I was thinking, I just want to write a children's book. And so after I did that, I'm done. Yeah. I'm like, that's the end of the work. And I was taught very quickly that no, it's the beginning of a whole, I should have started it, first of all, even before the story was finished. Yeah. But it's a whole nother phase of work and of skill sets you have to learn. Because now that I had all these boxes, I'm so old school that there were no print on demand companies at that time. You had to order the books from China and they were shipped on a boat to come here to the United States. And I had about 1,300 books in my house in boxes.
You used a master P of author.
Listen, I had books. I was like this, Ibrahim, like this. And I was just like in my trunk, like two for how much? 3 for how much? Seriously, I always had books in the trunk, books at school. Who wants a book? Listen, and you have to move your shipment of books.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the world changed again before COVID. Print on demand would allow that you could have one book. That's it. You can order 5 books. That's it. Back in the day, the smallest order was like maybe 1,300 books.
Man, that's crazy.
And you've got to look. There are many of storage facilities that are full of children's books, I'm sure, because somebody could move all their books. I mean, research says, the average self-published writer or author does not move like more than a couple of hundred, like low end, like less than 300.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I would hope that moving forward, when we know the numbers, and I mean, usually in my workshops, we will go through like, who are all the people on your success squad? So for children's book authors, yes, we're going to need an editor. We're going to need an illustrator, unless you already know how to do it. Me, if you want stick figures, I'm your gal.
I'm about to say no.
Draw a stick figure for you. But other than that, I don't know what to do. It's not my area of expertise. So that's usually your largest expense. You need a marketing plan. You need to know something about social media. As much as I say, listen, I've got basic level, but there's some experts out there. There are effective practices that work. Go talk to people who know how to do that and allow them to help you, pay them to help you. And once you get all the numbers down, then say, okay, this is great. I see. And it could be anywhere from a couple of hundred to a couple of thousand. It depends on your resources and how much you like to spend.
Yeah.
And if it's going to be an indie book, or you're just going to do the self-publishing thing all on your own, because there are different routes to it. But then think about, if you're a storyteller and I'm a storyteller, and we think that our values are in alignment and that our storytelling skills are in line, maybe we need to just have a book. It's the Ibrahim and Courtney book.
I like it. Tell me more.
Off the rack. Look, that means that I don't have to carry all that expense by myself.
Yeah.
And you don't have to carry it all by yourself. And you don't just have to, after you hit up your family and friends and people in your network, and
Yeah.
after I hit up my family and friends and people in my network, and when we really get down to the business of distributing our
Yeah.
books, that means to people who don't know us, cold calling, reaching out to strangers. They just may happen to like a character that they see because we've networked so much. But I'm talking about when we are selling boxes of books, not just individual books.
Yeah.
I think we could run farther and faster when we work as a team, when we work as, 2 or 3 people, or have 2 or 3 stories in one book.
I mean, elaborate because I'm gonna tell you. I'll say this. There's myself.
Mhm,
There's my good friend in New York who
mhm.
she just wrote a book about a little black girl that took her first plane ride to China because she was a teacher in China.
Okay, okay.
I think it's called Kaylin Goes to China, and Korean, don't kill me if I'm wrong on that. And then I have, another good friend that's in DC. He's a Capitol Police, and he wrote a book, about him and his son. And so in my mind, my wheels were turning like, man, how can we make like a super group, like a
There you
Black
go.
Book Avengers,
Yes,
Black Children's Book Avengers? Because
yes.
I was telling them like, hey, look, I'm booking these read alouds, and I just, just to get the word out about my book. And I want y'all to come with me.
Yeah.
And and so I mean, I'll say this. Um, I'm probably the most aggressive with my book in terms of like, calling people and calling these libraries and calling DC, like just just reaching out.
Yes.
But I think, and I want to ask you this. I mean, it's kind of early, but I still want you to. We here now, and so I want to know for the author who has, like you said, we put in all this work to create this thing, and then
Mhm.
we're like, it's here, and then you kind of just hit a wall. Where do we
Absolutely.
find success, in your opinion? Where do we go? Where do we,
Mm.
how do we get the wheels back turning? Because a lot of us, like me, I was an entrepreneur who just, I knew how to write,
Okay.
right? And so once I wrote, I was like,
Mhm.
all right, good, it's here. But then I started to think, well, okay, it's here, but I don't want to be like you said, like, doing the onesie twosies. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a hustler. So, I know firsthand what it feels like to do a bunch of moving around and not
Mhm.
really making any progress. So I definitely
Yes.
not signed up for that. And I even had people tell me like, and they're not authors and they're not entrepreneurs. And so it's
Mhm.
respect to them, but they don't know the journey. So they'll say, well, I have one friend who wants to know where to find your book, and
Mhm.
you should do this. And in my
Mhm.
mind, I'm like, you don't understand, like I'm not about to put that much energy into
So,
that because
right.
you know what I'm
Right.
saying, like my mind
Right.
is here because I want to sell boxes.
Boxes. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, so elaborate. Yeah, like how, like where do we get that next kick to, the next point?
You know what? I think it really depends. It's not outer, it's on the inside, it's
Mm.
inner. And I think we have to decide. I know this sounds real hokey,
No, I'm
but
with
I've been doing a little bit more reading, and I and I keep seeing the same message. I'm like, if I keep seeing this, there's a reason why I keep seeing and hearing this whole thing about it starts with the mindset. It starts in the last 2 years, I have seen and heard so much about it starts with the mindset.
you. Yeah.
And I really think it depends on what we, as the hustlers, the entrepreneurs, the writers, what do we want to do? What do we consider success?
Mm.
When I first started, and when I in my workshops, I have to ask folks because I was in the same place, and I was thinking, what do I want to do with this? Remember, I'm the one I wrote the book, printed the book. I have like about 1,300 books in my house, in
Yeah.
my dining room in boxes. And so I thought, I'm done. But I didn't realize, it's not because I didn't do my homework. I mean, of course, I knew, yeah, the books have to be sold. I didn't realize to what degree, how much energy and resources I needed to have in place to
Yeah.
sell those books. It got done, but I know now, oh, wait a minute, there's a smoother way of doing this.
Yeah.
You know, you build your community on the front end even before your book is written, so that they're waiting for you to say, hey, we're waiting for the next book. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know that now. I didn't know that then. When talking to other writers, we have to say, okay, what's your goal? Seriously. Like, again, we have to look on the inside and figure out, what is my goal? Because we have to ask folks, is this going to be a Kwanzaa gift?
Yeah.
Or is this going to be a book that you want to sell to your city and get into the school district in the city that you live in? Or is this something you want kids in China to read about your book?
Exactly.
Because there are different strategies for each destination, for each goal. So again, it takes that person. We have to be clear. So what is our vision? What is our vision for success? Because a lot of folks are like, okay, great, I'm going to write my book. It's much easier now because of technology, access to the internet, the fact that we have print on demand. You want to create a children's book, daggone it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And the amount of money that it costs, even if it's a couple of hundred to a couple of thousand, 15 years ago, it was thousands. It was big money to get it done.
Yeah.
Now it's cheaper to get it done.
Barrier entry is way
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that being the case, you still got to ask people, okay, the goal, because not everybody is seeing it. I know people, they're like, you know what? I have books and I just give them away.
Yeah.
Just give them away. And I'm thinking to myself, how much is your book? I'm like, how much does it cost to make your book? And so again, I take them right back to those numbers. Right. I'm like, okay, so you're telling me the numbers it costs to create the book. I said, so you're fine with not making that money back.
Mm-hmm.
Real easy exercise is that I share with folks, when you go to book festivals, what expenses are you spending that particular day? You spend your registration fee. You spend gas, possibly to drive there. If you're taking the bus, you're spending some bus money to get there. You might have a snack. Some of us are smart enough to bring our own snacks now, right? If you have to go. And that's if you had to go. Book festival, again, they're going to come back in-person book festivals.
Yeah.
But you're right, now they're online. So it's a whole different list of expenses. But my point is, what are you spending? How much time are you spending there? What is your time worth?
Yeah.
Time worth, because you can't get that back. I don't care if you're online or go somewhere in person. You can't get your time back. So how much is that worth to you? Is it worth $7 an hour? Or is it worth $25 to $100 an hour? Mm-hmm. You have to determine that and then act accordingly. So it's not so much, I think our goals, our vision, our mindset, we have to get that in place first. Yeah. And that will guide our actions and how far, because so often I really do think that we block our own blessings. We can create some activity in motion. We can make things happen, but when they're not in alignment with our goals, our visions, what do we think is success? See, just like you and I are talking about, we just sold boxes of books. Somebody else is just as happy selling 5 for the day. Someone else is just as happy. I know authors personally, they're like just as happy selling 5 books. They're just as happy as giving away most of their books, not selling them, just giving them away.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of activity than I choose to participate in. Because we give away, surely we've given books away. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem giving books away. But I'm going to look at those numbers too. And I'm make sure, like, you know what, this month I need to hit my numbers and sell one box. One box is 35 books. Okay, if I want to exceed my goals, I need to sell more than 35 books. How can I do that?
Right.
How can I sell like 5 books? But again, that's a level of documentation, monitoring, goal setting that it's a requirement. Like you
That's
can't, if that is more like where your goals are, you have to know the numbers, and like that business sense has to be
that's what I
there.
was about to say. That's more of the business. Like you have to be an entrepreneur to think
Yes.
like that.
It's
And
not
so
that part isn't that's not just about the writing piece. And then what
yeah,
I'm finding is there are a lot of writers though that are not thinking that when I'm looking, sometimes I'm like, wow, they're kind of wasting their time, or they're hustling backwards. They're
hustling
hustling
backwards. Yeah,
backwards.
yeah, no good.
And so they're like, no, 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 I'm doing what I want to do. You know what? Absolutely. And I would encourage you, do what you want to, figure out what you want to do and do that. They're happy passing out books to kids. That's all they ever wanted to do. They're hitting their goals. Great, peachy. But for those of us who don't want to do that, who have other dreams, we have to do it a different way. I share with folks all the time. Okay, I challenge you to do this. Out of your book money, so you've sold some books, pay a bill. I said, choose a small bill. Like, try and sell a cell phone,
Yeah.
cell phone bill. Knock it out. And when I challenge people, I've had people, they're like, Court, I sold some books. I'm like, fantastic. I'm like, so did you pay off the cell phone bill? They're like, nah, I need to sell some more some more books. I said, you sure do. So get to hustling. Sell some books. So then they understand, like, is this going to be a hobby for you? Or is this going to be, if this is going to be, you on your card, you have CEO, of your empire, your book empire. Yeah. At best, that may be cute to some people, but if you really mean it,
Kamisha had to have to talk with me. Kamisha had to have to talk with me. I look at her. I look at her like a sister, and so because when I first wrote the book, it was all from the passion, and I was
yes, been there with you, yeah,
it was all about the passion.
Yes.
And so I just she had to like really grab me by the ear, like, listen, is this a hobby? Or do you intend to make money? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's for the kids. I'm gonna make sure the kids. No, you're not saying. You gotta say it. And then once we had that convo, I was like, yeah, like I'm not really putting the business savvy behind this. I'm just more, like I never thought that I would write a book. So I'm like, yeah, I wrote a book. And then I'm like, okay, well, and so I think that you hit the nail right on the head. Like a lot of times people are just infatuated with the title of being an author because it's like, think about how hard it used to be. So I think that a lot of us are thinking about, in our minds, it was that hard, but we were able to do it. And we're like, yeah, I'm an author. You know how hard it used to be to be an author. No, it's not that hard anymore. And that's number one. And then number two, it's still money spent. You know what I'm saying? And there's money gone. And so I had to rewire myself. And that's when I said, okay, well, let me target the places that the kids can access the books for free. So let me target the libraries, let me target the school districts, like you said, so that if the kids can't buy it, then they can at least go to their local library and they can get it. And then that made me comfortable to put the capitalism, on it, because I was very much so like, I didn't want to, monetize, and I was just,
because it's not about monetization. Don't revoke my entrepreneur card by saying you don't have to monetize everything. Like, don't tell the entrepreneurs I said that.
Yeah, man, I'm just edit that part out.
But let's face it, that's what we think about. That's what we're thinking, like, and it does take that mindset. It's so real, because I'm still trying to figure. I'm like, so the currency is free? Like, that's what we're supposed, like, if you look on social media and like you see all of these people just like they're giving away their information. I keep seeing that people, that is the goal, to give away as much information as possible. And I'm like, okay, but I'm stuck. I'm like, so what am I having people charge? What am I charging people for if I'm going to give it away anyway?
Yeah.
I'm like, what do I put in the book? I just gave it away on Instagram. And
Data.
so their thing is repackaging. I'm like, how long can you start repackaging things? Isn't someone gonna say, isn't that what you just said on Instagram? Isn't that what you just said on in the ebook? Isn't that what you said? So I'm still trying to figure it out. By far, I am not, finalized a thing. I feel like I'm more of I share my experiences. I'm happy to share experiences, hear other people's, like your experiences, and trying to figure this thing out, because there's certain things that work, of course, better than others. There's certain strategies that are more effective than others. Totally. What happened before COVID, going to book festivals, it's a whole that will not end, but it's a whole different world
Yeah.
out here now that so much is online. How do we operate? How do we move? How do we work together? So I'm just getting my hands, and I mean barely scratching, because I had to come, just like you, I had to come to the realization, like, once I looked at the numbers, and I have a business mentor. Oh wow. And I said, it was like an aha moment. Ibrahim, I was like, wait a minute. I said, I think this is a hobby.
Man, yeah.
That was like wait a minute. Because sometimes writers like to fool themselves in thinking that I don't have to make any money. I like to write anyway.
Yeah.
And when you start to, again, how much money did it take for you to get to the festival? How much money are you spending away from your family? That's one for you right there.
Yeah.
It is costing your loved ones, your mate, your kids, your extended family. You're trying to hustle some books. They want you to come home because it's around the holiday season, or it's later in the evening. They want you to come home for dinner.
They want you to get off the computer. That's my biggest. They want you to get off the computer.
Yes. I mean, what are we doing? Being on this podcast is taking time away. We're sacrificing one thing for another. We can't have it all right now. There's something that is being taken away because we're moving forward right now.
Exactly.
And so when you're putting it in terms of what's been taken, what's been sacrificed, that's the same thing as dollars and cents. And so once people understand that, then I think people are like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a cost. There's a cost to this thing. And so we have to be clear on how much do we want to pay? And how much do we want other people to pay too? Because how much is it worth being away from our family? Is it really worth $350? Nah, it's not. It's worth more than that.
I would, you know what? I think that I know that I'm going to definitely share this with my other author friends, like on, us, the little ones, you know what I'm saying? Not the, you guys know, but like, because this is important. Like this particular, this is the wall. This is where most of us turn and go back the other way, And so like, how do we get over it? And it's like you said, it's the mentality, and more importantly, it's making sure that your actions align with where you want to go.
Absolutely.
I think that's, like you said, that's the most important thing. And also, I'm gonna say this too. I'm gonna kind of go back a little bit when you were talking about like social media and like giving away your content. And I wanted to touch on that because I know that you said it twice. So I thought, okay, let me make sure I say this. Followers and data is currency.
Yes.
It's currency. So
yes.
In this era, you can give away your content, but what will happen is a bigger company than you will pay for the people that love your content. So to the point where you don't even have to get money from the people that love your content, you get money from the higher ups. Until you become a higher up, you kind of get disconnected because it's a natural progression. Like the higher you go up, the further you get away from your actual customers, and then you will have to solicit someone lower than you to tap into what people actually are following and love. So that's my mentality with with like building my followership and just being like a dog when it comes to creating content. Like I'm just putting out content as much as possible.
Mhm.
Partnering with people. That's another thing I want to definitely
Partnering, yes, that's key.
conversation
Just
with
like tonight. Mhm.
yeah. Like I think that what you're saying, just by default, like the fact that you're on IG and you have successful books and you have something to say, your followership is going to go up, and the next thing you know, it's going to invite opportunity, and it's going to come from, because I thought that I had to get it from the community, right, at first, and that was perplexing a little bit for me
Mhm.
until I realized that, wait a minute, like I'm an asset to somebody who's disconnected from the community.
Absolutely. But I'm gonna tell you, I've been struggling with the idea, for example, build a website and they will come. Not necessarily. I've seen very nice looking websites and they're like 5 visitors, or 5 followers. Like people are like, what? I don't know. Who are you? I don't know. But they're fantastic writers. They have information to share. But what I want to share is that there is a way, like there's a way to connect and get your face and get your information out there. And people know there are experts out there, like I'm like out there in the cloud, out there in the world, in the stratosphere, that they know the strategies, because I can see them. I'm like, their websites or their IG pages aren't even so hot, but they have thousands of followers. But also, let's not be confused, because there are people with thousands of followers. That doesn't mean that that's going to, one, monetize into something. Like if you try and sell a service or a children's book or a workshop, that automatically means, oh, I've got, 50,000 followers, so that automatically is going to be a hit. Not necessarily.
No.
So the idea of likes that's one world, followers is another world, monetizing is another world, but ultimately it's the giving away of information. And now I'm learning about, like, the riches are in the niches. So the more we dig down, we throw out the wide net initially, because I know when I talk to self-published authors, they say, I'm like, well, who's your target audience? Who is this book for? They're like, oh no, I want to sell it to everybody. It's for everybody. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, no, you're going to end up selling to no one aside from family and friends. Like after you hit the family members up, that's it. That's it. It's not for everybody. Your book is not for everyone. Is it for a child? Is it for an elementary school student, a middle school student? Is it for a teacher, a grandparent to purchase for that child? Like, you have an avatar. You have to know who your target market is. Again, if I'm a writer, you're telling me about now marketing. I signed up to be a writer, children's books.
Exactly.
Right there to me is a wall, because now you're pushing me to step out of my writing skill set to now do this thing, marketing. Why do I need to market? Well, again, if you want your books to be in your house and be dusty after a while, yes, you have to get them out. Yes, you have to sell them. But that could be the wall. Again, you have to be clear. Like, what do you want to do? Is this a Kwanzaa gift? Is this a gift for Black History Month? Or you want to sell it to the masses? If you want to sell it to the masses, then yes, you have to learn. I mean, I would tell any writer who's interested, take a course on marketing. Gosh, I wish I would have taken one. I've jumped in the deep end of the pool and learned what I can learn. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. But if there is a course or two are out there, take them. Listen to people who are been in the field for a while, and follow what they do. If it works for you, everything does not work for everyone, for sure. What works in children's books, I know, is not necessarily what works with young adults. They're a fickle group. Those teens, preteens and teens, woo, they're fickle. And plus, our kids who love our books, they don't have money. So we are not just writing for children.
Yeah.
We are writing to entertain adults and children. Get clear. It's not just for kids. we are writing for adults and children. I wrote A is for Anacostia because I have elders that come to me and say, like, I remember the big chair when I used to walk down MLK
Yeah.
as a kid. You know, I used to fish in the Anacostia River. I write for the people who are going to have memories about Anacostia, the community, about and the landmarks in the community. So I keep them in mind when it's like, who is this for? Who is the market for? You know, and so I think all writers, self-published writers, again, I'm gonna make that distinction. Self-published writers, you got to keep that in mind because at the end of the day, you're out there, you are selling your books. Only you,
That's,
really.
I think that's the biggest takeaway. I think that's the biggest takeaway is you need to know, number one, what your goal is. You need to know who your target audience is. And you have to be realistic with your ability to power through this thing. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Would
Absolutely.
you add anything to those?
Don't stop short. To me, you may quit and you are like right there.
Yeah.
Like you've got more success right over that wall. I don't know where that wall is. I don't know when you should climb rather than, somebody in your family is going to say, you know what, you've been doing this children's book thing for about a solid 10 years. Isn't it time that we get a regular job now?
Yeah.
Right. Regular
Mhm.
9 to 5. Be real. I got a regular 9 to 5 gig. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why I can even write more children's books. Be real about that. And now I want writers to have that kind of conversation with each other too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
folks like that, I can write books and that's my dream to live in the countryside and write books in my home every day, all day. And I'm like, that's a great dream to have. And I'm all for let's reverse engineer and figure out what do you need to put in place to make that a reality. But in doing that, I also believe let's talk to people who have done it. Let's talk to a few. I know of at least two. They're full-time authors all day long. Both started out as self-published authors. And
Are they? I want to talk to them too. I
they
want
were
to.
hustling those books. And then they converted over and now both are associated with larger traditionally published companies.
Mm.
That's only two. You know how many people that I know who are or who started out as a children's book author or started out as just a self-published author. Most of us do not do it full time all day every day. Most of us are
you
like
have to accept that.
entrepreneurs. I know, I take that back. No, most of us are writers and we have another something that pays most of the bills. And that we have carved out some time and some energy where we can do our self-published thing in addition to family, in addition to the regular job,
Yeah.
and then other family and community events. I want people to, I consider that, do your homework. Do your homework before you get into this thing called self-publishing. It can be a beast. You can waste a lot of time and money.
Yeah.
A lot of time and money. And I think it's really, I would add that it's really important to be a part of a community of writers who are doing it, who are successful, and who are also really being challenged. Everybody in this is not successful. Let's be clear. If the research that's out says that on average, self-published folks, self-published writers, we typically don't sell like more than maybe 250. I think they said digital copies of the book. I really want to get clear and I'm very interested in collecting the data. I'm a researcher by training, so I want to collect data on self-published authors because we need to have some new stuff to use as baseline of like, what is success, first of all, that, what's the general definition of that if there is one? And then from there, what are we selling? I know in my book festivals, I do a survey and I ask people, how many books did you sell today? 0, 1, 5, 10, 25. I don't know if it's what kind of conclusions can I draw if I don't know the numbers and if I don't know the stories that created the self-published book. So I think we have a lot of information to collect. So it's necessary for us to move in a community because we can change policy, we can change actions, we can change how this thing works, we can change how we make money or not make money. But it's very difficult to do that as an individual, and we're all working in our own silos.
There's this there's an analogy that's like playing in my head, right? Of like what it's like to write a book. It's like we're all of us authors, right? We're all on a plane, and we all have book bag. We all have backpacks on, and nobody knows who actually has a parachute in their backpack. And we're all just jumping out. And the reason I use that analogy is because I just want to see the person who knows that they have the parachute in their backpack. Like, I want to see this person, because it feels like in this industry, no matter how, even if you become successful, there's really no, like, you can't really trace it back, because we all kind of start in the same way. We have a passion, we're not really entrepreneurs, and we just want to do this thing, and we all jump out. So it's like, it's almost, and when you say that you're a data person, like, I feel that, because for me, I like to be able to, like, I'm not prideful in a way where I can't humble myself to someone who has been successful in a place that I want to go. So, even when I meet successful authors, it's still like, they don't know how they got there. They just was like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you hit that on the head. You hit that on it. You're right. That, and I would add on to that is the fact that sometimes we think success is equated with length of time in the field.
Yeah.
So you've been a self-published author for 10 years. I've been a self-published author, and maybe for 3 years. Oh, because you've been doing it for 10, that makes you more successful than I am. And I'm like, no, not necessarily. Again, we have to clearly define what is success. Is it number of books purchased?
Let's just say that that's it then. Let's say that it's number of books purchased.
If we do that, then if everyone collected data on number of books sold, right? So then we're keeping track. Everyone keeps track. How many books did you sell? And so that on a monthly basis, we dump our numbers into such and such website, right? So then we could see, oh, okay, I didn't sell any books this month. Oh, I sold 50, books. Oh, I sold, 400 books this month. I'll tell you this, Black History Month is coming up. Oh, I tell you, Black self-published authors are going, this is our season. This is the season right here.
Yeah.
During Kwanzaa and during Black History Month. I tell you, that's the season right there, both of those 2 times. At least 2.
I'm trying to. I don't want to be.
I want you to buy books all year round.
Yeah, I want mine to be
like Black History Month, like Black History Year. That's us all year round. That's the real. That's what in my head, I think that. But the numbers say something different, right? So if we were all to say, you know what, we agree to keep track of those numbers, books sold, and we identify that's what we're going to do, then that would be great. The issue then is just making sure that we are all agreeing and that we're all documenting the same way, so that we can discuss, what does that look like from one quarter 1, 2, 3, 4? What do book sales look like? Like, so if it's about books sold, if it's start evidence of that, bring receipts, right? You've got books sold. You can bring receipts to show evidence of that. If it's a business, your W-2 show that, because everyone's supposed to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Make sure I say everyone's supposed to pay taxes.
Yes.
Don't let it be said that Dr. Davis didn't tell you to pay those taxes. And see, that's a whole nother beast, because there are lots of writers who are not paying taxes on what they're selling at book festivals or wherever else. I'm not trying to, throw shade on anybody. I'm just saying it exists. That issue exists. So when we're talking about how many books are being sold, when you pay for books, you pay for taxes. Comes out,
Yeah,
supposed to handle that. Again, bookkeeping, that's a whole nother beast.
it's a whole other beast.
A whole nother beast. Like I signed up to be a writer of stories. I didn't sign up to be a bookkeeper. And for most of those people who feel like that, self-publishing is not for you because you must. It comes with the territory. It's like saying that I want to have a child, but I don't like dirty diapers.
Not happening.
If you're going to have your own child, you're going to change some diapers. You can't do it without changing some diapers. So you can't do the self-publishing thing without marketing. You can't do it without bookkeeping. You can't do it without regularly monitoring and documenting what your sales are. Hey, use me as your cautionary tale. I've made some crazy mistakes all along the way. I share them all the time. That is what I like to share in workshops, to say, hey, it's not like, hey, be like me. It's just the opposite. Don't do it. Don't do it like I did.
Is there something? I mean,
I know some people are rocking the bookkeeping thing. I mean, I know some all-stars that they've got great tips, and I'm trying to talk them into doing some workshops, because I think just like we're talking here, there's some authors that everyone's got their different skill set.
Yeah.
That they know how to do very well. I have a friend, she is so good in interviews, right? So I'm like, you need to do a course, just doing showing other authors how to rock the interview. Somebody else needs to do a course on bookkeeping and documenting your sales, keeping track. Because it sounds like, well, I don't really want to do that. I'll let someone else do that. Listen, you go to a book festival, well, I don't care if it's online or in person, you sell 20 books. Your book, let's say your book may be $10 a book.
Yeah.
If you sell 20 books, that's $200. Now, you didn't count your gas and your snack and all that kind of stuff that I talked about earlier. So that $200 is dwindling as I speak. The money is just dwindling away.
Yeah.
And now on top of that, I'm telling you, if you're not going to do the bookkeeping and learn how to do it, then who else is going to do it? You're going to pay somebody else to do it.
See, these are the conversations, I don't know how to where you are in terms of what you want people to understand about being a self-author. That's where I am in terms of wanting people to understand things about entrepreneurship. But I want to go a step further and not only identify these issues, right, at its most raw state. These are the raw conversations that we are or may not be having. But then I'd never like to identify issues and not have some type of solution. And so that's what I wrestle with in terms of these types of conversations, because if I'm selling entrepreneurship to the next generation, right, and I'm telling them that, look, I know that your grandparents are saying just go to college, get a job, ride off into the sunset. They're still struggling. And I'm saying that you can go this route. Well, then I want to be able to, I know I'm not going to be able to take your hand and walk you to the promised land, but I want it to be almost as surefire as getting your, becoming a doctor, and you take specific, and okay, we don't have to go that route. We could say becoming a journeyman plumber, right? Or electrician, that if you take these steps and you stick it out with these steps,
that's right.
And you don't do any extracurricular, then you should be able to make that money if you have these type of certifications.
Absolutely.
And so it sounds far-fetched, it sounds kind of far off, but that's the goal. And then also for the conversation you and I are having, I'm following you. There are so many pitfalls in this.
There are. It's the basic foundation. You can only provide a basic foundation. And I'm not saying, once you get that, I think people will feel more confident, because you don't know what you don't know. The way I'm talking to you now, you should have called me about 10 years ago, because you would not have had the same conversation.
Yeah.
You would hear, hi, my name is Courtney Davis, and I wrote A is for Anacostia, and buy my book. That's it. Buy my $10 book.
Give me money.
Give me 10. It's all transactional. That's all I knew at that time. Yeah. $10, here's your book. $10, here's your book. And then the printer, the price for the printer, Ingram Sparks, went up. And I think at that time, I may have had a friend who that's what she does. She works with small businesses.
Yeah.
And I think I started working with her, and she said, she dropped, you know, a little gem to me, like, so you're going to increase your prices? And I'm like, how do I do that? Like, how would I do that? And it makes sense that I should do that because the printer is going to charge me more. But then it also, again, to the mindset, you know, if I raise the prices to $2 more, like, are people not going to buy my book? It's a $12 book now. Like,
yeah,
it was a lot for me to increase prices for my book. It really was. I mean, it sounds so frivolous. Like, it's old hat. Like, it's something you don't go to Target and expect them to keep their prices the same forever. Of course you don't. They don't.
Right.
They don't jack them sky high either because of the amount.
The volume.
Right, the volume that they have. But self-publishers, we can't do that. And we are nervous about, well, our customers, will we lose them? Because like, how much money do they have? I don't know why too, that we always think that our customers don't have any money. They do have money. People, period. Well, if you're going to market to them, remember, we talked about identifying your customer, your avatar.
Right.
If you know who that person is and you've already developed a relationship, you have brand loyalty and they will follow you. They're not going to follow you if you charge $50 for your book, but you wouldn't do that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so you take feedback from them, but you give them what they want. So it's just cyclical.
Yeah.
When I started working on I was trying to figure out how I should work on the next book. And I asked my audience, I said, where would you like to go next? So if A is for Anacostia and S is for South Side of Chicago, where should we go next? B is for Brazil? Because I was like, we don't have to stay in the United States. Come on, let's travel the world. Is G for Ghana? What? Come on. Yeah. And I started asking them, where do you want to go? So believe me, if I would have had enough, if I were to go back to that data, because sometimes I collect data and it just sits there, and that's on me to be held accountable to, like, all right, do something with that, Court. You write that next book, you know. But my point is, you listen to the data. If the data says G is Ghana, G is for Ghana, that's the next one they want. Do the research. Let's get that book out. This G is for Ghana. Then G is for Ghana should be the next book that comes up because there's a market for it. They're telling me what they want. And if it's large enough, like, I'm not going to do a G is for Ghana book if just 5 people want it. It's just not enough.
Yeah.
But it's got to be enough to maintain all those expenses that come along with creating a book.
Yeah.
And that which is in alignment with my values and my goals and the fact that I want to give a lovely, high quality book to a young reader, or heck, any reader for that matter, young or old.
100%. I mean,
so now I'm not talking like the writer. I'm talking like straight
a business
entrepreneur.
Owner.
Like, that's right.
So that's my 4th takeaway. Then you have to be able to remove the creator hat and put on your business owner hat. And if you don't have it in your arsenal, then you might want to reconsider. Or you might have to invest in somebody who specializes in that.
Right.
Like, I'm telling you, like, I am literally, you know, I'm like, okay, I need to know some stuff before I get off this call with Dr. Courtney Davis. you feel what I'm saying? So I'm taking my notes. I know exactly what I'm taking from it. And hopefully the other authors that see this, because I've had these conversations and we're being transparent with one another, and we're talking about fatigue, you know, where you like,
oh my goodness, you get tired of hustling books. Like, but you say it's so diplomatic and nice to hear you say it. You say the fatigue. I'm like, I am tired. I'm sick and tired, actually. And you will limit. When there was a time before COVID, when you would go to the book festival, you're like, look, You stand up at a book festival from about 8 in the morning, moving your stuff in to about 8 at night. That wears on you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can wear on you. You're hungry, you can be tired. Sometimes you're moving and by yourself. It makes all the difference in the world if you have someone there helping you. It's typically a family affair between husbands, mates, wives, children, teens.
Yeah.
When I've had an intern come with me, oh my goodness gracious. That intern was heaven sent.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, it was made
Get an
all the
intern.
difference.
How hard is it to get an intern? I need an intern. What do I have to be able to get an intern?
Uh, you need to have a very clear description of what you want
Okay.
that intern to do. That's for one. So you write it up, think about everything that could be helpful to you. And then you have to figure out, okay, how, like, is this going to be your little cousin, or is this going to be a high school student who needs some
Yeah.
service hours? And seriously, it can be hard because you can't bark at an intern. You can't hold someone accountable who volunteers versus holding someone accountable who is on your payroll. It's
Yeah.
different. And expectations are different as well. So you have to get clear, what are your expectations? What is the intern supposed to do? And then how are they going to be compensated? Everyone wants to be compensated. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
dollars and cents. It could be in service hours. How
Yeah.
long are they going to be there? You're not going to have them be there 12 hours with you. And then the kid is hungry, or the intern is hungry. I mean, you bring them snacks too, or bring them lunch, or give them time off so they can get some lunch. And you have to keep all that, in consideration.
I think that's my next move, because I am
So helpful.
fastly
So
coming
helpful.
up to the point where I know that I cannot continue to do all the things that I do without some type of help. Because I got this one hat on, but under this hat is a bunch of other hats that I'm
Absolutely. And
wearing.
then too, you're gonna have to use your discernment and say, okay, what makes one intern better than another?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm serious. I'm like, okay, is it a high school student, or can it be somebody in their early 20s? Can it be a senior citizen? Is this person supposed to lift heavy boxes of books in and out your car when it's time to set up? Are they responsible enough to be on time and set up the whole table all by themselves? And then you come along after everything is set up.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff you want to think about. Are you going to trust them to handle all the money, or just you're going to handle all the money up front? Are you going to train them to do certain things? What are you willing to train them to do?
Yeah.
Because you must provide some kind of training. You could think, oh, this intern is great because I've already set up everything, but here's the deal. They can then kind of meet people maybe about 5 feet away from the table and draw them in and bring them to me.
Yeah.
Bring the customers to you. That worked out so well. And I'm like, when I tell you to have assistants, it just reduces stress. You don't realize how stressful it is for it to be a one man or one woman show. That when you receive some assistance, you're like, where have you been? Where have you been all my life? On the flip side, when you receive a person who is not helpful, you're like, oh my goodness gracious, what did I do?
Yeah.
I didn't do something right. And when it falls back on you. You're the lead, you're the CEO, right?
Mm-hmm. The lead maverick, as I like to call myself.
That's right. So when it doesn't go according to plan, you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, now let me have a debriefing meeting with the whole team, which is you.
Yeah.
You look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, Court, what happened today? And then you have to sort what happened through the day. You don't blame anyone else. Take full accountability for it. I'm like, okay, so how can we avoid this again? Do we need to train? Did I need to arrive there early? Did I need to stay a little bit later? How can we work smart? Instead of, how could I keep track of all the books that were sold today? I have no idea. Well, why don't you know how many books you have on the front end so you know how many were sold on the back end? What's a great tracking system we can use throughout the day so that we're not like, I saw that kid and he was running from in my locale with my book. No need to fret about that. But you have your tracking system in place.
That's right. I'm writing it all down.
That, oh my God, you know who taught me that was Jerry Craft, my illustrator. He had a tracking system that I was just like, what is this? And he had pictures of his books that he had, that hardcover, soft cover, all the books, and he tally marks, checking them off. And I'm like, oh wow, why wasn't I thinking of that? It's simple. It's a really simple kind of, because you know you go to different festivals and not everybody has access to the internet at the festival. Most do now, but before, not necessarily.
Let's talk resources. Your, I guess, off the top of your head, for that author that just wrote a book or is thinking about writing a book, or like, you know, me, a couple of my, you know, constituents, you know, hitting that fatigue wall. What are some resources for us?
For self-published folks, of course, I'm going to encourage you to start to listen to The Way We Self-Publish. It will start right there. I'm going to say the first week in February. We're trying to push these episodes out. The trailer is already available, and you can check it out on IG as well, The Way We Self-Publish, because not only will interviews be featured, but also kind of action items of helpful hints will be featured after every interview too.
Yes, we need that.
And the reason why I want to set it up like that, mainly because for authors like us, I'm like, you know what? Most of the stuff I do is because it did not exist when I was in the exact same place, when I was a beginner. Yeah. And hey, I consider myself, I've been in it for a little while, and it still doesn't exist, not to the degree that I want it. So I want to create it. If it's not out there, who else should do it? What am I waiting for? I know we all need some additional help, right? Yeah. So I want to hear, like, you're going to be like, you will be a guest on the show as well. And yes, so right after your interview, we'll have action items like, and this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. I would definitely say there's Facebook groups to be a part of, African-American writers and illustrators. And there's ones like independent African-American writers, I think it's called. There's two that are Facebook groups. You can just plug them in. There's one, Black Readers and Writers Weekends. And they have a Facebook group that shares, like you can post up, writers can post their launch dates for events, and they can find different events on there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So please, at this is the most important part of this show. How can people contact you when you want them to contact you? Sure. Where? This is your, please let us know wherever you want us to find you at, please.
I love it. I have a website. It's www.drcourtneydavis.com, and that's DrCourtneyDavis.com. Catch me on Instagram at dr.courtneydavis.
Yeah.
On Instagram. And then, of course, The Way We Self-Publish. Catch it on Instagram as well. And then there are Facebook pages by the same names.
And so for the people who are going to tune in and make it through this interview of all jewels, make sure that you follow Miss Dr. Courtney Davis, the author of A is for Anacostia, and S is for Southside, and a few others, right?
You know what? Those are my only two. Those are just my only two. I'm now working on a third. And let me tell you, as you talked about fatigue before, I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you, if I could say anything else, because my first book, I wrote it and then I just put it in a drawer. I mean, I had it edited and I put it in a drawer, literally in my desk. And I was like, I'll get to it. I had teachers talk to me. They gave me critical feedback. I read it to students. They gave me critical feedback. I put it in a drawer. And it wasn't until almost a year later, in January, I said, oh, you know what? I said I was going to write this book. Let me go ahead and move on. if I can convince anyone to avoid sitting, and matter of fact, I think he's sitting on it, procrastinating. Once you start, just keep plugging away. Don't stop. Don't take a break. Some people say, take a break. And literally, I had a friend, she was another guest on the show. You'll hear her, Christine Turner Jackson. She wrote the book Pitch Black. And she will say it took her years to write her first book because she would start and then stop and start and stop. And the problem with that is that she would name certain places and then change the names by the second iteration and then forget certain details. And like, hey, it doesn't make any sense. So just keep at it. Even if you just write a little bit, if you write just for 10 minutes, keep writing 10 minutes every day. Don't stop. Just give yourself 10 minutes until it gets done. That's a lesson. I share that because I need to hear it too and follow through and be held accountable. And if I could add one more thing, I'm very interested in what does it take to hold us accountable? If that takes a text message, just to remind all of us to say, hey, how's it going today? Did you write for your 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Did you write your 10 minutes? Because we all know you're not going to end up writing 10 minutes. You're going to write longer than 10 minutes. Period. You're going to write, I don't know if it's 15, I don't know if it's an hour, but if you give yourself 10 minutes, you're going to write longer than 10 minutes. But we just need that little to hold someone accountable, because I'm like, Court's, her text is coming. It comes every morning. I better hurry up and write my 200 words before or my 500 words or my 1,000 words before I get that text. Or the flip side, it could be a check-in like, yep, I wrote for 10 minutes.
Shout out to Kamisha. Shout out to Kamisha, because she is the reason that this book is in existence. My publisher, he was like, so what are we doing? And I'm like, yeah. I was just about it. That's my favorite. Yes. I was just about to call you.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be about like shaming someone. You know what I mean? Like some shaming or, well, what's going on? How busy are you? Let's get it done. It's just like, hey, we understand. I'm gonna give you some grace. We're in a pandemic. Okay, we get it. Yeah. You got kids. Okay, how many balls in the air can you balance? Because our world is changing. If you have little ones in the house or even big ones in the house, our world is changing. So how can we still identify these goals, get our mind right? Because we got to get our mindset together and still plug away. We've got so many distractions. They're real. They're real things that are going on in the world that require our attention. And at the core of it, we still must plug away and move forward to get the writing done. Yeah. We don't have anything to sell if we don't. Our friend David Miller, another writer, he said, you're only as good. I remember this like yesterday. It kind of hurt just a little bit because it's like, Court, you're only as good as your next product. And I was like, oh, I felt that in my heart. I did, y'all, because I'm like, are you like limiting me to just like a book or a t-shirt or a course or just a little something? And he's like, you can't be out here in these streets selling the same old book that's 10 years old. That's real.
Yeah. I guess I didn't even think about it like that.
A's Anacostia is like 10 years old. I'm like, yeah, I sold something. And that's only because I'm a resident in Anacostia right now. But people are checking for something else a bit more relevant, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like the Christmas story. Like your Christmas books, they sell because it's seasonal. Yeah. Okay. A's for Anacostia is because we're a resident of Anacostia. Okay. But believe me, the numbers should have been the greatest when it was first published. You can't write a book for 10, 30 years. No, you've got to write something else.
Right.
You've got to do something else, another course, another book, a collaboration. That's what I'm like, if you don't listen to me about anything else, collaborate with someone else with your writing, get it done.
Look, I'm here. I'm like,
you let me chat. Like you let me chat too much. I told you, like,
Nah, nah.
Cut me off when it's time to go.
No. I told you from the beginning that this is the you show.
And
So
I just knew. I said, "Oh, we're gonna be talking about a half an hour. Then it's gonna be, it's time to go to dinner, or go out, or go do at the house." So here it is, an hour and a half. So I apologize to him, but I've had so much fun.
Look, I'm so glad that you were able to like really just get into everything. That's the reason why, I used to do the check-in on Instagram.
No.
But it's a hard cut at an hour.
Oh,
and
then
so
you knew not to have me on there, because I'll definitely like
the universe, man. The universe was like, nah, you need to hear a little bit more from the doc. So we gotta hold off on introducing you to her until we get over on this platform. So that's why I'm over here, is because I did not want to constrict the conversations. I wanted the flow of the conversation to go wherever it was going to go. So I'm soaking up game. My notebook is full. I can't wait to.
Mine too. I'm taking notes right here.
I can't wait till the people see it on Sunday. So by the time you see this, people, you're welcome.
My pleasure. I've had a ball. I've learned a lot, had an opportunity to share information and open up to answering any questions. Please feel free to give me a message, DM. If you want to email me, I'm CD, my initials at drcourtneydavis.com.
Yep, and then just text me those all of your links again. I know I already have
okay,
them. Just text them
yeah.
in one block.
Okay.
Because when I post this and then when I put it on the website, I want to make sure that I put that block there in the description so people can just like click.
Will do.
I want to thank you for a phenomenal conversation. I want to thank you for all the jewels you dropped. I'm looking forward to our conversation on your platform. I'm
absolutely
looking forward to collaborating in whatever way the universe moves. I want to thank those who have wrote it out with us. I want to thank the new people that are going to see this, and I want to thank the people who have always checked in. We do this every Sunday. Well, you'll see it every Sunday at this point. 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 Central Standard Time. And for those of you who do not know the motto by now, shame on you. If you call yourself a hustler and your hustle motivates, you got to check in. And we out. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a good night.
You too. Have an exciting evening. Bye-bye.